Well, good afternoon, and it is really our honor to be here to visit Word of Faith. I have been here many times. I have known Jacqueline Crockett and her late husband for many years, and I consider them very good friends. My name is Randy Fishman, as I said. I'm a practicing lawyer for 47 years. I didn't say that, 47 years. Our firm is Ballin and Fishman. And I practice in these courts. My partners practice criminal law, Leslie Ball and his son Blake. And we are facing a judicial election this August the 6th. You know, I say this to people when I get an opportunity because it's very important. Politicians come and go, and they promise they're going to do this, that, and the other, and they're one of a body of legislatures. And they'll affect your life perhaps or perhaps not. A judge, if you're a litigant or you have a family member who's a litigant in their courtroom, they're going to affect your life. They're going to directly affect your life. For that reason, we need competent, intelligent, and patient judges. People can be difficult. They can be difficult to handle, and you have to have a certain temperament. On my right, Chancellor James Newsom, Jim Newsom. On my left, Chris FRULLA. I've known them both for years and years, and I'm proud to say that they fit those qualifications. And that's the reason I'm supporting, and that I hope that through this and other events, you'll get an opportunity to know them a little bit, and you'll support them as well.
Okay. All right. So, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm Jim Newsom. I am a chancellor in Chancery Court in Shelby County, one of the Chancery judges. And what Mr. Fishman said is very true. He has had cases in my court that were extremely important to his clients. And I had to show myself to be fair and impartial. I like Mr. Fishman very much, but I couldn't show favoritism to him. It happens that the lawyer who represented the other client, I like that person very much as well. But whether I like a person or not, in the final analysis, I have to hear the facts and decide impartially based on what the law guides me to say, that is what the legislature provides. And then I have to exercise discretion, judgment, and above all, wisdom. Before I go into court each day, I pray to the Lord that He will grant me the wisdom that I need to decide a case, which is very difficult because often the cases are very close. But I want to do the right thing. I have tried my best to do the right thing, and it's my intention to continue to do that after being elected with the grace of God to an extension of my present term.
All right, well, my name is Chris FRULLA. I'm a husband, I'm a father. I have a wife and two amazing children. They drive me every day to be the best person I can. And for my children's sake, I try to be the best role model I can for them. So I was in private practice at a law firm for my whole career, for about 15 years practicing law in circuit court, defending people and businesses that got sued. I loved helping people. That's what allowed me to go to work every day and enjoy it, was knowing that I was helping someone out of a bind. People get sued, they're unfamiliar with the courts, and I was able to walk them through the process, kind of hold their hand throughout that time and make them feel valued and let them know that, they were in good hands. And so last year a vacancy came up when a trial judge went to the Court of Appeals, and some people in the community came to me that I thought were very respected people, that I thought were leaders in the community, and they wanted me to put my name out for the appointment to fill that vacancy. And that was something that was very humbling, very flattering, and I was taken aback by it. Like I said, I was a partner in my law firm. I wasn't looking for a career change, but when these people who I truly value came to me and told me that they thought I'd be the right person for the job. It meant a lot, and it caused me to reflect. And I talked to my wife, we prayed, we talked, we prayed and talked more. And this opportunity is something that's once in a lifetime. And for me, a native Memphian, born and raised here, went to White Station High School, so did my wife. And we're raising our kids here. And, this community has given me everything in my life. And so this was an opportunity for me to give back to the community that's given me so much. And so that desire to serve the community is what led me to give up my law practice, to leave my law firm, leave my partnership, and come to the bench. So I'm in circuit court. We handle very complex cases there. And just like Chancellor Newsom, the cases are tough and they require a lot of thought. And so what I bring to the bench is my 14 years of experience as a trial lawyer in circuit court. But what I also bring that's equally important is my empathy and my compassion and my respect for the common person. When people come to court, a lot of times they've never been there. It's unfamiliar to them. I try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. I try to let them have their day in court regardless of what they look like, where they came from, what side of town they grew up on. As Matthew taught us, we should do unto others as we would have done to us. And that's what I try to apply in my courtroom. So the principles in my courtroom are fairness, impartiality, integrity, trust. Without trust in the judicial system, it crumbles. And so I try to let people know that when they come to my court. I can't give legal advice as a judge, but what I can give people when they come to my court is the time of day. What I can give them is respect, and what I can give them is their fair shot. And so that's why we're here today talking about the support we need to keep myself on the bench and to keep Chancellor Newsom on the bench so that people can continue to come to my court and leave knowing they got a fair shot. Even if I rule against someone, which I have to do, every case I have to rule against one side or the other, but I feel like I've done my job if they can leave the court knowing why, knowing that I didn't just sit up there and toss a coin in the air, that I applied logic, common sense, and the law and came to the outcome. And so they may disagree, but as long as they leave saying, well, I disagree, but I understand how we got there, I feel like they understand that they've had their fair shot, because that's what everyone deserves. And so that's why I'm here asking for support to stay on the bench.
Okay, without, giving names and a lot of details, what cases have you had that impacted you most?
Before I became a chancery judge, I participated in the case involving the theft of trust funds from the Forest Hill cemeteries. As you know, many people pay in to the cemeteries so they can have a proper funeral and a ceremony and all that comes with it. And so there was this pot of money that was there at Forest Hill that people had paid for in advance to have their funerals taken care of. Well, the ownership of that funeral home changed, and the new owners helped themselves to that money for their own benefit. And it really showed me, because I was representing the receiver of the cemetery whose job it was to recover those funds. And this was in Chancery Court, just like every case that I have now. And it shows you the importance of Chancery Court to the people in our community. Well, I am so glad to say that we pursued those people who were responsible for taking all that money. We recovered all that money. No one had to pay for a funeral again that they had already paid for, and it affected over 13,000 citizens of Shelby County. And it was a very significant case. I've tried cases that perhaps are even more significant, but that case, I think, shows the individual how important that it is that we have good judges in our Chancery Court. You know, we are this year celebrating the 250th birthday of our country. And you know, we measure that 250 years from the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And there's these words that we all know that Thomas Jefferson wrote. He said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Well, a court like Chancery Court is where those truths are realized for the benefit of the people of Shelby County. Without good judges who protect the rights of those people, those are just pretty words on a page, but they're not. They're enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and in our Constitution that gives each and every person, any individual, those rights, and the protections that the law grants to people stem right out of those rights that are guaranteed by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And it's my privilege to be in a position to enforce those rights for the benefit of those people. I'm nobody special. I grew up on Barron Road, just up the street from here where we're sitting today. And I went to Sherwood Elementary, Sherwood Junior High. I went to Messick High School for those who are old enough to remember. And from there, I went on to Rhodes College and to Vanderbilt Law School, where I got my law degree. And I was on the Vanderbilt Law Review, which is hard to get on. And so when I came back to Memphis to care for my elderly parents, I wanted to make a difference to the people of Shelby County. And for the last 10 years, I have been in full-time public service as a chancellor and in other roles that are impacting the people of Shelby County on a day-to-day basis. And it's my privilege and honor to serve in that capacity, and I wish to continue to do so.
Right.
I believe that you were asking what cases we've handled that have impacted us greatly, and any case I handle that involves children impacts me greatly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have 2 young children. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, along with my wife. They are my world.
Yeah.
And so anytime I see a case with kids, which is a lot, it affects me. And one case I had recently, so in circuit court, a lot of our trials are jury trials. And I tell people, I often go talk to the jury pool on Monday mornings to try to inspire them, because, a lot of people feel burdened when they get that card in the mail saying they have jury duty. But I try to explain to the jury that while they may feel somewhat burdened coming downtown, finding a place to park, all the things, the real life things that go into it, I tell them, which is the truth, that if they're selected on a jury, they're going to be making potentially a decision that's the biggest decision of someone's life. That someone has waited years to get to a trial. And, if it's in criminal court, it could be whether a dad goes home to his kids and wife or whether he goes to jail. If it's in a civil court where I am, it could be whether someone gets compensated for the death or injury of a loved one. These are huge decisions. And so we had a case about a month ago in my courtroom that I presided over as the judge, where a young mother, the allegations were that the doctors did not do enough to deliver her child in time. The child was delivered eventually via a cesarean section, but she alleged the doctor should have acted sooner. And the case involved, by the time it got to trial, the young man was either 8 or 9 years old. The case was filed right at the 3-year deadline for medical malpractice cases. And then, it was a big case. It involved like almost 20 expert witnesses. So it took 5.5 years to get to a trial. And so that goes back to what I tell jury members, potential jury participants every Monday, is that, this is this person's day in court.
Yeah.
And the allegations in this case were that because of the actions or inactions of the doctors, the child was born with certain physical and cognitive impairments. Had some issues with his left hand, I believe, and his leg, and then some mental deficits. Those were the allegations. And it was a 12-day jury trial. So, in the work week, we don't do jury trials on Saturday and Sunday, so it spanned almost 3 weeks. And, of course, I'm looking out at the young mother in the audience. I'm looking at the doctors. I'm not picking any sides. I'm sitting there. And in a jury trial, I'm not the finder of fact. The jury's the finder of fact. I'm the finder of law, and I tell the jury what the law is they have to apply. So throughout the trial, I have to rule on motions that get brought up when people object or different types of motions arise. But I'm sitting there watching the trial unfold, hearing this mother's story. And ultimately, the trial culminated in a $38 million verdict in favor of the mother. So you want to talk about the biggest day of someone's life. Those are the biggest 12 days of someone's life that ended with that one day. So that case, to me, without weighing in if I thought the jury made the right decision or the wrong decision, it's their decision. They're the jury. And I tell people our judicial system in America is not perfect, but it's the best in the world. It's the best in the world for a few reasons, but one of which is you're entitled to that trial by a jury. It wasn't just me making that decision. It wasn't a group of bureaucrats or a dictator. It's 12 people, your peers off the streets of Shelby County, making that decision, and it's a very important decision. And jury members, again, oftentimes at the beginning, they're frustrated to be there. Oh, I feel put out. But every single time I finish a jury trial, you can tell, and oftentimes I'm able to talk to some of the jury members. They come together as a group, and they're back in that room working to reach the right decision. Because they know that that's what they're tasked with. And once they start doing it, they realize just how important it is that they are there. So that's an example of a case that impacted me greatly, just to watch it unfold and to watch that mother and her child's life change forever. They went from a situation where she's a single mother. I think she's a registered nurse, a hard worker, but had a son, whether there was negligence or not, had a son that did have some deficits that needed extra care. And now she'll have that for the rest of her life and won't have to worry about her son not being taken care of. So it was a powerful case. Again, I'm not making any comment on whether I thought the jury made a right or wrong decision. That's their decision. But it was very impactful, and to watch that person's life literally be changed forever in front of my eyes.
Well, let me ask you this, like that case and the case that you just cited, were they or any other cases that you can remember, cases that you took home with you and they just made you cry and pray extra harder?
I often have cases that affect me in that way, because so many cases are excruciating. There was a recent case that we have that eventually will lead up to an adoption. And we do all of the adoptions in Shelby County in Chancery Court. And so the case that we had involved a young woman who had shown herself, in my view, to be somewhat irresponsible. And the fate of her 7-year-old daughter, who is now living with her grandparents, came before the court. And like Judge FRULLA said, I can't comment on the merits of that case, but both the mother and the grandparents dearly wanted that child to be with them. But the consequences of that child being with one party, at least in the eyes of the law, would have been detrimental to that child's future. And so that was a hard decision. I wrote an opinion, unlike in circuit court where Judge FRULLA works. We very rarely have jury trials in Chancery. So ultimately, in that circumstance, it's the judge who is the finder of fact in a case. So it's my responsibility as chancellor to hear the evidence, to keep an open mind, to determine who is the more credible witness, and to call that out if necessary in writing. The opinion that I wrote in that case, as difficult as it was 140 pages. And that was really all my work product. And so it's important to have, and I'll mention my name, Jim Newsom, as your Chancery judge, because I'm experienced, have done that kind of work, and that's the work that it's necessary for a Chancery judge to do in order for the Court of Appeals, if there was an appeal, to evaluate whether I have done my job in terms of listening to the proof, in terms of discussing what the proof was, and why I came to the various conclusions that I had to reach at the end of the day. And it's not simple enough as saying, I rule for this person, I rule for that person. It's really in my responsibility, if I'm doing my job well, to put Jim Newsom in my signature on that ruling and say, that's what I find. And that is my certification to the Court of Appeals, that I've considered the facts, that I've evaluated the law, and that I've come to a conclusion which I feel is the correct decision. Now, that decision that I make is subject to review at the Court of Appeals level, but if I have done my job, it decreases the likelihood that that case will come back to be reheard or retried. And you can imagine that the child is now 7. If it comes back when she's 10 and they have to try the case all over again, it would create great uncertainty, instability, and would negatively affect the future of not only that child, but her entire family. So it's a great responsibility, and I urge the public, the voters, to vote for me, Jim Newsom, as Chancellor of Shelby County in the August 6th election.
Sure. So I don't want to sound like a broken record talking about children, but you know,
They're important.
they are important, and they should be the most important things in everyone's lives.
Yes.
And the types of cases I handle in civil court, you know, we have divorce cases, and then what I call post-divorce cases, which involve disputes over custody, alimony, child support. And then the majority of the rest of the cases I hear are really dealing with money, personal injury, medical malpractice, like I talked about a minute ago, business disputes, commercial litigation, breach of contract. You know, those are very important matters, but they're involving people's money. When it comes down to it, not to say those cases mean any less, but the cases involving real people and their lives, to me, are more significant, because that's someone's life. You know, whether they have their child in their home or have their child taken away from their home, that should be the most critical element of someone's life. And so cases that I go home and think about at night are typically not whether some big business is going to get some money from another business that they had a disagreement with. It's whether or not I'm making the right decision when it comes to child custody. Unfortunately, parents, they lose sight of what's important, or what should be important, which is making sure you raise the best children possible, making sure you give them the best life they can have. And so these parents get angry at one another. They let spite take over. They let rage take over, and they lose sight of the children's best interest. You know, my job is to make sure the children's best interest is what's honored in the outcome. So cases that I have that really tug at me at night are where there's allegations of abuse, whether it's sexual or physical, made by one parent against another. And unfortunately, sometimes there's merit to those allegations. Also, unfortunately, sometimes there's not, and they're trying to weaponize the judicial system to deprive their ex-spouse, who they dislike, of their right to parent that child. And those are tough decisions. You know, in those custody cases, I'm the finder of fact and the finder of law. So I have to listen to the parties' testimony. I have to hear the evidence. I have to judge credibility of the parties and witnesses. And then I apply the law. And I darn sure want to make sure I get it right. Because at the end of the day, you know, like Mr. Fishman said, my decision is going to impact not one person's life, but at least 3 people, mom, dad, and child, and then the extended family beyond that. You know, as we know, a lot of times here in Shelby County, it is the extended family that's sometimes acting as the immediate family for young children. You know, for various different reasons. You know, sometimes it's grandmother that's really mom, or it's auntie that's really mom. And so the impact goes out in a spiderweb type form very broadly. So when I have a case involving a request to take a child away from a parent, a case that involves restricting a parent's time with their child, those are cases that keep me up at night. Because again, you know, my children are my life. I mean, I wake up every day and, you know, think about what can I do to be the best role model for them? What can I do to make their day better? When I come home from work and have had a long, tough day, it's tough to do, but I try to hang it up and become dad, because that's what our kids need.
You know, I want to add something. You know, as a lawyer, I've never been a judge, but as a lawyer, I'll have a client, and I'm going to dig into my client's side, and I'm going to present the best position I can present on behalf of my client. These 2 gentlemen are in a way different position. They're in a way different position. They have to analyze both sides. Okay, that's not easy. I mean, look, I've been doing this a long time, and I think I've learned how to judge people. I can make a judgment, and I'm not to pat myself on the back, but I'm pretty decent at it. But these guys got to do this every day, and that's a special talent, and that's maybe the biggest reason why we need to elect both of them to Circuit Court Division 3 and Chancery Court Part 2.
Can I add to that? I think I practiced myself for over 35 years in private practice before I became a judge. And it seemed to me that I would work for weeks to prepare a single case to be heard by a judge. But with judges don't have that lead time of preparation. We try one case after another. So it's our responsibility as judges to read what the lawyers put in front of us, to know how they are arguing the case on either side. We have to read both sets of briefs, and we have to, and often these briefs are very persuasive, and the arguments that are made are very persuasive. So it's important for a judge to be decisive, because we don't get do-overs. And so we don't have the kind of lead time, as I was saying, that sometimes the lawyers have to familiarize themselves with the case. And so I'm glad to say that regarding the requirement that a judge be decisive, that no one has argued a case before me that is ready for a ruling who has not yet received a ruling. In the lawyer's parlance, I don't have any cases under advisement. I've made rulings on all of them. A lot of them have been very difficult, but no one is waiting on me to have their case decided that is not fully argued before the court. And I think that it's important, because often justice delayed is justice denied. And I found that when I replaced Jim Kyle as a chancellor, that many of the cases that were still in my court had been in that court for many years. And it was important for me to get to those cases. And I've reduced the active caseload before my court by almost half. And I'll say a word about my background in addition to the 35 years of private practice. Altogether, like Mr. Fishman, I've been in the law for 47 years. And I enjoy the lawyers who come before me, the clients and the parties who come before me. And I think that it's important to have a judge who is enthusiastic about their job, who is ready to do a good job, who is on time, who is impartial, who is diligent. And I have shown those qualities as a judge, and it's my intention to continue to show those qualities.
So, questions, anyone?
Well, I have one. The question I have, actually, you all have already answered, but for the sake of the one that's going to view this broadcast, to tell me why I should vote for you. But before you get to that, Judge Newsom, I just want to say thank you. My mother bought a plot through Forsyth Cemetery. And after all these years, I had no idea it was you
God bless you. Thank you.
that were responsible for making it right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And Judge Christopher, if you would expand on a quote that you did. You said being a judge is about more than just handling cases. It's about making a meaningful difference in the citizens of Shelby County and the community I love.
Sure. So I talk about this often. There's some jobs that people have. You go in at 8 o'clock, you start your work, you take your lunch break, you end your day at 5 o'clock, and you go home, and that's your job. You're done with it, and that's fine. There's a lot of great jobs like that. I think being a judge is very different because I think judges should be seen as pillars in our community. And to me, being a pillar in the community means I'm just not at work 8 to 5 on the bench. I'm out in the community, okay? I'm showing people in the community that I took this job because I care about the community, not because I was looking for a job, but because I wanted the community to know that judges are accessible, approachable, and that we do care about the citizens of Shelby County. And so what I meant by that quote was, in addition to the hard work I put in at the courthouse, I value the time I spend out in the community. I was asked not too long ago by someone, if you were to give up law, what field would you go into? And I hadn't really thought about that because I don't plan on giving it up, but I thought about it for a while, and my answer that I came up with was education. Because I love teaching people, I love talking to people, especially students, young men and women who may be lost and looking for the right path in their life. I enjoy sharing my experiences with them. I enjoy, again, just letting them know that, yes, I'm a judge, but let me take this black robe off. Let me come meet you where you are and talk to you and let you know what wisdom I may impart on you. So I try to get out in the community all the time. Shelby County, it is the largest geographical county in the state of Tennessee. And when you really start to think about it, go take a drive from Arlington to Westwood. Go take a drive from Millington to Hickory Hill. It is a vast community that involves people of all walks of life. You have people that live out in large acreage in the suburbs. You have people that live in very dense apartment complexes. You have people that come from all different walks of life, but they all need to know that they have access to the justice system. And so by getting out, going to different churches, going to different community events, community fairs, things like that, and just letting people from all walks of life get to know their justice system and who's handling it, that's super important to me. I think, unfortunately, there's a large section of the population that probably doesn't have trust in the judicial system. They may also feel intimidated by it. And I try to work to eliminate that, again, just by meeting people where they are and letting them know that we truly are here to serve them. I work for the community. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think a large part of the population of Shelby County feels really disenfranchised by the legal system. And I do believe that this is the best legal system in the world,
Right.
with all of its flaws or whatever the founding was, but I do believe it is the best. Could you just speak on that a little bit more, just to let people know that, we're here for you. We, we affect day-to-day lives, because I talk to voters who are my age who say, I just skip through all of that. If it's not mayor or president, then I just skip through all of that. And I tell them, I said, these are the things that will impact you the most. I mean, the president, he's great and all of that, but these are the things that will impact your day-to-day life. And you never know when you're gonna face a judge, and when you do, it is life-changing.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I think the perception is that our court just handles complicated business cases, and we do. But the work that we do really affects people on a personal level. For instance, our Chancery Court and I, with regard to people who have real ID issues, often in order to be able to travel by air, to care for loved ones, or to visit, or to do any number of things, people have found out that over the years they might have a different name on their birth certificate than the name that they've used all of their lives. And we have thrown open the doors of Chancery Court to anyone who is facing that problem. And we have, and I will interrupt a trial if I need to, if someone comes in that needs to have their their birth certificate changed because of a reason like that, because I know how important that is to the individuals who come in, and they don't want to wait out in the hall for hours on end for a trial to be over. But I know it won't take that long for us to adjudicate that question. So we do that very frequently in Chancery Court, and it's one of the unique things that I offer as a chancellor to the community. Often there are tax sales, and people have their property sold out from under them. Perhaps it's been in their family for generations. Well, the law allows a person who's in that situation to pay those taxes and redeem the properties that have been sold at the tax sale. And I oversee those processes too. Those affect people in their day-to-day lives. And so, and there's circumstances where perhaps someone died without a will, and there's many persons who would take potentially from who were the children or the grandchildren or the cousins or the aunts and uncles. Well, we work to straighten out those issues as well. So there's lots of ways in which the work of my court affects the day-to-day lives of people, in addition to the things that I talked about before, like adoption or uncontested divorces or things of that nature. We try to streamline the process in order that people don't have to use all their time to sit around in the courthouse, because we know that people have jobs. It's hard to get off work for something like that. And really, once a year, on what we call National Adoption Day, we held adoptions in my court on a Saturday. And that makes it convenient not only for the mother and the father, but whole families to come and watch what goes on in the Chancery Court, because it's a real-time of celebration and knitting families together in a special way. We've had the courtroom packed out on many occasions for those sorts of proceedings. So if people, I want people to know that we have an open court in which we can do business for them that will benefit them in their everyday life.
And to touch on what you mentioned, the concern that people have and the feeling they have of being disenfranchised, I think that, not to speak for the people, but just my perception, I think a lot of times people feel that because they feel removed from the judicial system. They feel that the judges, the people in charge are distant to them and they don't know them. If you don't trust someone because you don't know them, you don't know who they are, you feel like they don't have your best interest at hand, you do feel disenfranchised. And so I think an important way to break down that barrier is to encourage people to get to know who they're going to press a button on the ballot for. Don't go vote for someone because you saw a pretty sign or because you've heard their name before. In an ideal world, we would all get elected on our qualifications. I would be naive to say that's how it really works, okay? And I think that feeling of disenfranchisement could be reduced if we have more things like this broadcast to the public. And that's why I try to get out in the public so much, because I want people to go vote for me, A, because of my technical qualifications of spending my entire career as a lawyer in circuit court where I'm now the judge. But I also want to get elected because they know that I'm someone they can reach out to if they need to. I can't give them legal advice as a judge, but hey, I'm a teacher. Could you come down and read to the kids today on career day? Absolutely. I love that. Hey, I'm a church leader. Can you come talk to our congregation, to the young men or young girls clubs, things like that? Because I feel like if the citizens of Shelby County see the judges out doing things like that and actually get to know them as people, that sense of distance and removal, I think it gets lower and lower and lower. I truly do feel like if the citizens could get to know the candidates better and choose the right one, we could help solve a lot of those feelings.
Mr. Newsom, could you speak on your passion for mentoring?
Yes, we have an open door policy in our court to have children, school-age children, come in and see the courts in action. Because one thing that people really don't realize is that our courts are open to the public. And I can think of one circumstance in which a whole classroom of students came in. We were in the middle of a trial, and I could tell that the students were very interested in the testimony that was going on from the bench. They were evaluating the witnesses themselves and could see it was like a real life drama unfolding right before their eyes. And to see something like that, and they didn't want to go when it was time for them to leave. Their teacher came in and says, "Time to go." They go, "Oh, don't make us go." But to see that in action allows children to have the seed of a thought of what they might be able to do someday with their life, what career they might be able to achieve with seeing what the direction that they would want to go in. Because children are like little sponges. They want to learn, and to be able to see something like that in action and make it real is very important, and I think achieves a great role in mentoring those children. And of course, we're just a small part. The teachers have the children in their classroom for much longer than we, but because you're in a courtroom with wooden panels around the walls, that it impresses folks, children with the solemnity of a court and how a court is a special place and perhaps a place where they would want to be sometime in a role of an advocate like Mr. Fishman, or even a judge like Judge FRULLA or myself. So I think that those kind of real life examples, when they can see it in action, is very significant and impactful for young men and women. Thank you for the question.
I have a question. With the longevity of law, history of law between all of you, having been dealing with that in that longevity, what percentage of it have you seen? And we know laws change daily because of that, but personally, have you seen that that's something that you may have need to address or have already addressed, just to make changes in judicial law?
Sure. So I think I understand what you're asking. Let me make sure though. Trial judges, which is what myself and Chancellor NEWSOM are, we're trial judges. So we're at a level where we cannot change the law. We cannot make the law. We have to apply the law. So we do have to stay informed when the laws change. In Tennessee, like most states, the laws change through the legislature, or in addition to that, with our Court of Appeals and our Supreme Court in Tennessee. The Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, they rule on certain cases, and they can establish what's called precedent, okay, which is common law through the cases. The legislature enacts statutes, which are codified laws. And so one thing that's super important for us as judges is to make sure we're current. We know what the current law is. That's the most important part of applying the law, is to make sure you're applying the correct law. We look for different decisions that come down from the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. We get something every day, the judges do, where it talks about decisions made by the what we call the appellate courts, the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. And every day when I get that email, I look at the cases, and if it's ones that I handle in my courtroom types of cases, I read those decisions to make sure I know what the Supreme Court is saying, what the Court of Appeals is saying. Anytime there's new bills put forward that might affect the laws in our court, I try to stay up to date on those, because we absolutely have to. And the lawyers, the judges, let me think of the right way to say this. It's the lawyer's job to give us what we call a pleading, which is a written document that says, here are my facts, here's the current law, and here's what I want you to do based on the application of the law to those facts. Judges, we can't always rely on what the lawyers say. Not trying to say that they're trying to deceive us or pull one by, but maybe they haven't updated their forms. Maybe they don't know about changes in the law. So it's our job to do our own research to make sure we know what the correct law is to apply. I read everything before I get to the bench, because I want to make sure that I've gone back and double checked to make sure they are citing the correct law, because if not, that's something that needs to be addressed. So we don't get to change the law in our courts, but we need to be aware of the changes. So I don't know if that answers the question you were asking or not.
It does,
Okay.
but I was thinking that even though you have laws, and the laws are changed because of something that happened, or the time, the century, and the way things are constantly changing daily, on a daily basis, and the loopholes that the citizens find in the law, and then the history of it, however it may go back to ancient, where I'm sure I've seen the law books, so I know it's a lot that you have to, be aware of, but I was thinking, I guess it's practicing law. So, I was thinking that if given the time, say now, and the things that are constantly changing that's going on in the system, that I guess you'd say, how can you say you wanted to say, let's see if we can make changes in this, add something to it, which is what It's done every day.
Can I pick up on that?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question. I agree with Judge Frohl about everything that he said about being certain that we are keeping up with new cases that are decided, for instance, by the Tennessee Supreme Court, or even sometimes by the United States Supreme Court. It affects the way that we are bound to rule, because we, as trial judges, are bound to follow the authorities that are right on point, that where the appellate judges have told us what the law is or how we are to interpret the law. But you would be surprised how many times a case comes before us where there's uncertainty in the law. It's what lawyers call a case of first impression, where it hasn't been decided before. And it's up to us to apply wisdom and decide cases the best we can. I can comment on this because the case has been settled, but there was a case involving the reconstruction of the Cosset Library down on Front Street. And the contractor that was involved in that case had his email account hacked into. And the hacker instructed the contractor, actually the owner, to direct their payment by wire transfer to some phony baloney account in Michigan. And they did it. And they thought that they were following the contractor's instructions. Well, there was really no law that was was telling me what to do as a judge. And so I tried as best I could to look at cases from other states, maybe even federal cases, to see how that case should be decided, because someone was going to be left holding the bag. So the judge has to make a best efforts call from time to time, and that's what I tried to do.
Let me comment on that as well. As a practicing lawyer, sometimes we find statutes come out. We can talk about the medical malpractice statute that came out in 2012, or when we changed the way we look at injury cases, when McIntyre came out, those things changed the fundamental way we handle medical malpractice and injury cases. Well, we got a statute to look at, but there have been, I can't tell you how many cases on each of those two issues where there's no law. You're reading the statute, you say, well, I think I can do this and this, and you take a position, and you may be right, and you may not. These gentlemen are going to decide initially, and then the Court of Appeals is going to tell them what to do, and then the Supreme Court may come back and tell the Court of Appeals what to do. So it's evolving. It's always evolving, and we're still getting cases on McIntyre that came out in 2006 or something. I mean, it's 20 years old, and we're still getting fresh cases on issues on how we handle injury cases that have never arisen. Just the oddest case. I've had cases myself that have gone to the Supreme Court on both of those issues, just because the statutes don't really answer everything, and we as lawyers and judges have to grapple with that. So that's yet another reason why you want somebody with some experience and knowledge sitting on those benches. And I tell you right now, when Judge FRULLA was a lawyer, we went toe-to-toe on many occasions on cases, and I've tried cases in front of NEWSOM. I've been in his court, and it's my pleasure to be in both their cases, win, lose, or draw, because like they say, I know I'm getting a fair shot. I know that they're going to look at the law, and I can't stress enough temperament, knowledge, and wisdom, and these two have got it.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up. Y'all ready to wrap it up? Let's wrap it up with final comments from everybody.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like I emphasized earlier, I love talking to people. I love sharing my story and my why. I would never blindly ask anyone to vote for me. I want people to vote for me because they know I'm the qualified candidate, and because they know I have the right intangible characteristics that a judge should have. We've spent a lot of time going through that this morning. Again, my name is Judge Chris FRULLA, Circuit Court Division 3, FRULLA, Circuit Court Division 3. I would ask for your vote. I would ask for your support because on paper, I'm qualified. My entire career was spent in circuit court. Okay, you want to judge with experience, but not just experience anywhere. You want to judge with experience in the court where they're the judge. You want a judge that's tried jury trials. You want a judge that's had motions, that's handled cases in circuit court that are complex, because those decisions you have to make are not easy. And oftentimes you have to make them immediately. During the middle of a trial, we've all seen it on TV or a movie, a question's asked, I object. Counsel approach the bench, and they argue, and right there's 12 jurors sitting over there waiting. There's the parties waiting, the lawyers waiting. I've got to make a split-second decision. Now, if I need to, I can always take a recess, but ultimately, you want to advance the case. So they're hard decisions, but with the experience I had before becoming a judge, I was able to transition into this role fairly seamlessly. I learn stuff every day. Do not get me wrong. I did not come on the bench being omnipotent. I'm happy to learn, and I do learn every day. But I know what the structure looks like. I've handled a variety of cases over my career, over types of law that are complex and difficult. So from a technical perspective, I'm qualified. But again, I feel like there's a second part to the qualifications of being a judge, and those are your intangible characteristics, your temperament, your respect, your compassion, your empathy. I'm an empathetic person. I care about people. I care about people deeply. I don't like people to feel uncomfortable in my presence. I want them to feel welcomed. I want them to feel acknowledged and respected. Again, like I said, I can't give people advice. Even if I want to, they may not have a lawyer, and I want to tell them, here's what you can do, but I can't do that. It's not fair. But what I can do, I can point them to resources. I can point them to different resources that will help them. Not because I want them to win, I want them to come to court informed. I tell people all the time, you may have the best case ever, but if you don't know how to present it, you might lose. So caring for the common man is something you want in a judge. If it's your mother, your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter, you want them to come to my courtroom and feel respected, and that's what they will get. They'll leave that courtroom, and even if I rule against them, I believe that they will leave feeling like they were treated fairly, that they got their shot. And if I'm wrong, the Court of Appeals will tell me. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Court of Appeals may never say I didn't do the right job, but they will never say that I didn't work hard to get the result, that I didn't apply logic and reasoning. Sometimes the courts just disagree, but ultimately, keeping me on the bench means you have a judge that's compassionate, that's fair, that's qualified, that has the education and experience to serve Shelby County. And the second part of the job I mentioned earlier, you have a judge that's accessible, that's out in the community, that's approachable, that's happy to talk to groups, whether they're children, adults, teenagers, because I care about Shelby County. It's given me my entire life, and now I want to give my devotion and my service to Shelby County for the rest of my life. Yes.
I'm Jim NEWSOM. I would appreciate your vote for Chancery Judge of Part 2 in the August 6th election. Please keep in mind that early voting starts on July 17th and goes through August 1st. I think that the people of Shelby County deserve a judge with integrity, a judge who is compassionate and cares for the people in his courtroom. I grew up in Memphis. All my life, I've tried to serve the public in the best way that I can. I've been married for 44 years to my wife, Deborah. We have 5 grandchildren. Our life is very stable and gives me the platform for public service. I am a regular attender at my church and am an elder in my church. I bring all the experience of 47 years of legal practice to bear every time that I walk in to the courtroom. I think that the lawyers will tell you, as Mr. Fishman was saying, our court is a courtroom in which everyone is heard, everyone is listened to, because I am come prepared each day to do my best to do the job of a judge, which is a very important role, as I said previously, to protect the liberties that are guaranteed to us by our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. You will only be able to come into contact with those guarantees in a trial court such as Chancery Court. So I want to tell you that you're always welcome in our courtroom. And I too want to meet each and every one of you who is watching this presentation today. I hope that you have learned from what we talked about today that we are judges who want to do the right thing. We want to treat people the right way, the way in which we would want to be treated ourselves, because we believe in the dignity of every person who comes into our courtroom and treat them with respect. And I look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail between now and the day of the election. And thank you for your time, and please vote for Jim Newsom, Chancery Court Part 2. Thank you.
I want to thank my dear friend, Dr. Crockett, and everyone on the panel today for having us here. As most of you know, I've been here several times, and it's always a pleasure to come out and see what's going on out here. I think you can tell from the questions asked and the responses given that what I said initially about both of these judges is accurate. You can see they are thoughtful, they're articulate. If you walk into either courtroom with or without a lawyer, you're not going to get run over. You're going to get heard, and you're going to get a fair shake. And I can tell you, as a practicing lawyer, if you give me a fair chance, that's all I can really ask for. Obviously, I want the edge my way because I want to win. But the fact of the matter is, what I'm entitled to and what I get in their courtrooms is a fair chance. And that's the most important thing you can ask of a judge. Be fair, be impartial, and use your skill and wisdom and apply the law. And that's what we have with these two. And I urge everybody who's watching this panel, tell your friends, tell your family, send email to your groups. Please vote for these two because they're going to need your help to win. And I would say to you, if you ever find yourself as a litigant or your family and you find yourself in one of these courtrooms, you're going to be glad they're on the bench. Thank you once again, and everybody, I hope you have a great day and a great afternoon. And again, I sure appreciate being here.
All right.
Thank you all.